I'll pass it over to Maxwell.
All right, thank you. Yeah, it is a tough question because I think there's a lot of cool stuff. But with crypto winter, going on here, I think a lot of those things have quieted down. Like I've seen a lot of cool projects that haven't had updates in like 4 or 5 months. So I'm actually kind of excited about more of the boring stuff, or quote unquote boring, which Web3 technologies potentially can, start supplanting in a way that's a little more equitable and things like that. So kind of tying on the credential stuff, like token gated websites and stuff like that. So we were chatting, I saw in the piece with the Guild XYZ, but using Unlock in the background. I've followed Unlock for a while. Stuff like the Gitcoin passport with some of the civil resistance stuff. Just kind of some of the nuts and bolts of Web3, I think, is where I'm interested in doing, because those are the things that will allow us, to build the cooler stuff later on. So anyway, let's pass it to Tam.
A good question. So I think there's a lot of great projects, so much more than are on my radar. I really like what ReFi is doing, ReFi DAO is doing around coordinating founder circles and bringing founders from the regenerative finance, multiple different projects together, raising funds for grants. They have community manager circles and marketing lead circles. So it's really compelling how they are taking multiple different projects in the same plane and bringing together all of the resources so they can learn and share with each other. I also think there's like some really cool research still happening, what Kelsey and Ellie are doing is really cool. It's Web3 governance, self-infrastructuring is, I think, is what they're calling it. So self-infrastructuring communities. I think there's a lot of really cool research that's still happening in the space that will, I think, help us build better tokenized systems of the future. I'm really, really, really kind of obsessed with a lot of the AI stuff. So it's like, for a change, I'm really delving into some non-crypto stuff, which is rare for me. But all of the text to graphics and the OpenAI chat is just extraordinary. Like I'm helping. Like I'm using it I'm using my daughter's homework as a test to see how well the answers they reply are. And so far they've been pretty much like good, solid A- work. So yeah, I feel like I'm straying a little bit from crypto and delving into AI. And I would love to pass to Bianca.
Thank you, Tam. One project that I've been interested in and I see a lot of good things coming is Darshana. They help people to get jobs in Web3 and also kind of like introduce Web3 to people who don't know much about. It's a very cool DAO that I've been working. And also Peacemakers, it's a project that it's about bringing peace to the world and spread the word aloud. Streamer, he is the one who started this project, and he is also building a DAO around that to have like art and peacemakers around the world. So it's really cool. I will pass it to Bear.
Thank you, Bianca. Yeah, I think there are many, but similar to Maxwell, I think that right now during the winter market, it's kind of like hard to keep up with them because they are more like quiet in a way. So right now, I kind of like forgot some of them, before. I had like a lot of them in mind, but some of them that I can think of, I really like these apps or protocols that kind of like provide context to transactions, like in a way like payments or treasury management, compensation, things like coordinate. I find that still pretty innovative, pretty simple, and really cool, and they keep working on that. So that's one, and as well as CoinShift and Parcel, same thing, like trying to provide context with to the on-chain transactions. I think that's really powerful, and I feel that's something really needed to keep working on. So yeah, I like those. I'll just pass it to Juanca.
Okay. Well, I think that an interesting project is Dex Freight. That it's a project where my brother has been working for some years, and they are working on decentralized logistics and supply chain. And I think that that's something really impactful. The supply chain is super unorganized as it works right now, and having all these technologies there is a really cool idea. And yeah, that's a project that has been growing, and they are now even thinking into like changing from a closed source code to open source. So that's also interesting. I will pass it to Griff.
Damn, I wanted another second to think about the best projects. There's too many. Like for background, for like behind the scenes project, I was just looking at this blockchain called Moonbeam, which is like a Polkadot network project, and they're trying to make it really easy to do cross-chain communications. So like make the user experience so much easier, where you don't have to actually like change networks, and all the smart contracts can talk to each other. It's kind of, maybe it's not like it's more for developers than it is like user facing, but I really like what they have going on there. Yeah, kind of boring, but, and let's see, looks like NT hasn't gone.
You're right. I'd say I have 2 or 3 projects. So lately I've been looking, and I've been using Aztec Network a lot, which is a rollup that I find very curious, because other rollups have to sort of fractionalize liquidity between rollups and blockchains, but Aztec is able to use the liquidity and smart contracts on Ethereum to like, it's like if you want to deposit to Aave, you can do that through Aztec. And so they bundle a lot of transactions, a lot of deposit transactions, and they just post one to mainnet, which I think is really cool. And it also uses it is also heavy on privacy. So I guess I see it also as some sort of kind of replacement to some extent to Tornado Cash. That's one. The other one is Trader Joe, which was like a Uniswap v2 fork on Avalanche, but they yesterday announced the version 2, which is significantly, it's closer to Uniswap v3, which is more complex, but has some other cool stuff around that Uniswap doesn't have. So I'm very curious to see and to test it. And that's pretty much it. I'll pass it over to as Laser.
Yes, thank you, Andy. Well, I got this question. I would recommend a Mexican project that it's called Swarmy. It's a very cool project. It's just to exchange crypto to Mexican pesos, and it's very easy. It's just like 2 clicks, and you got it in your bank account. Yeah, it it uses many networks. It has Gnosis, Polygon, Binance, and Phantom, and yeah, they have many networks, and it's very easy to use, and it's Mexican, so that's why I love it. And I'll pass it to Rex, I think.
Hey everyone, so I just joined. I was watching the football and got a bit carried away, so I'm not sure what are we talking
About a Web3 project you recommend.
I've been out of the loop lately, so the projects that I know are like 2020/2021 ones. I one I have quite a bit of is Luxor, which is has some really cool technologies. They developed the OSI 725, which is like an on-chain key manager. So basically, you can have a master wallet which controls a bunch of other wallets, and you can sort of use the master wallet by proxy. It's a very cool project, and the native chain for that one is Luxor. So yes, that's.
Okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. You'll see in the notes that, let me share my screen. You'll see in the notes that there's some of these that I missed as I was trying to do some other stuff in the background. So feel free to go into the notes, and if I got the project wrong, just please edit it yourself. For me, yeah, lots of stuff. I feel like I've been kind of like sucked in too close into what's going on in the TEC lately, so I've kind of lost track of what's going on the outside. But having said that, the two that I'm really interested in right now, one is I love what Gitcoin protocol, what Gitcoin's doing with its grants protocol. I think it's pretty cool, and I think we should be paying close attention to what they're doing. And then the other one is Lens protocol. I really think that what they're doing right now in terms of making it easy for people to control their content, like I think that what we're seeing with, well, just so many social media networks right now is that, man, we got to be in control of our own content. Having that control in the hands of large corporations, I learned the hard way with Google and Google Plus that is just not a good idea. So, I love I love the direction that Lens Protocol is moving in. Okay, so looks like we haven't really had any new topics added. So the topics today that I thought would be good to talk about is, one, just follow up on the Twitter space we had last week for our community call, and then the second is like what are we going to be focusing on, particularly within the coordination team, but like then how does that relate to the bigger group of active contributors in the TEC over the next couple months. So I just wanted to highlight some of the stuff there and get some conversation going around that. Twitter space last week, pretty cool actually. I mean, we pulled that together kind of last minute, and still we had like 36 people in total and 20 people on the call on average over the duration. So Griff, thank you for agreeing to do that. You did. I thought it was great. I thought it was super interesting, and Eduardo, was great to have Eduardo back in that capacity in particular. It was like really cool, and so it seemed like that was a good test. I mean, that's way bigger than what we've been experiencing over the last several months with our Discord-based community calls. So. I took that as kind of a positive sign that this is a direction worth going in, and so I just wanted to check with people, like, how are you all feeling? Like, should we keep doing these, and does a bi-weekly pace seem like that's a good idea? What do people think?
I thought it was pretty awesome, to be honest with you. I really like the content that we had for that is just kind of getting people excited about what we're doing here in the TEC. And it has a far broader reach than the people in our, who are locked into Discord. So I really do think it's good, and I do think if we have it bi-weekly, it'll start to gather some steam. I think that the issue is like organizing and planning content. But yeah, I think it's a really good format.
Yes, and just to let you know, I was talking with Auntie, and I think the next community call it's going to be the 100. So that's amazing, I think. So maybe we can do something. I was thinking about giving some POAPs. I can work with that, so problem. I can send it to the people, but
that would be cool. I think celebrating the 100th community call is a great idea. POAPs and just making it a thing.
I just want to say that I think I don't necessarily like the idea of I think for now we should try to have the calls more as like on demand. So we have a few things going on, and we can also prepare a few things. But with in the current state of the TEC and also the ideas we have, like the interest groups and all of that, I think the community is going to change a lot in a very short time. And I don't think like locking down to any specific format or frequency is going to do us any good. So I would just love to see more things done, like I don't want to say last minute, but more spontaneously. So, for instance, I think Rex has been chatting with a few guys. Maybe we can invite them for a tour space at any given point in time. The creation service related call is going to be on Discord instead of the Twitter space, because it's more appropriate to showcase some of those things. And so I think, like, for now, that should be the way of trying to be active in the community, but not like having anything set in stone, if that makes sense. I don't know.
So that's a different perspective from what we are talking about here. So it would be great to get other people's take on that. Are we better off kind of maybe not thinking of this so much as a community call with a fixed format or like a fixed timing, and treat this more as kind of like spontaneous things that are more driven by actual need and opportunity? What do you all think?
Well, I've done quite a few Twitter Spaces as a listener, so the Twitter Spaces are more dragged out. They're more conversational, and I think that the first part with Griff, like, it was great. Like, you were great, and it was very much like sort of the stuff you expect on Twitter Spaces. But we did see a fallout, like after Griff's stopped talking. We kind of just did this methodical, like group by group, like what they've been doing. And ultimately we saw zero increase in like the number of people that joined the Discord, which was an interesting one. I don't know exactly why. Maybe we didn't kind of do that call to action, or I don't know exactly why. But although there were there was a lot of people kind of tuning in, no one joined the Discord. But I do think that we should test this out more. I have been speaking with some people to sort of get either like small panels or like just a conversation going, and see whether we can just try everything and see what works best. On the frequency, I don't really have an opinion, by the way. It's like, it's useful to have a general idea of how often you're going to do one of these things so that then you can plan ahead, but you don't need to force it either. The sort of people that are coming to the community call, it was us mainly, and a couple of people that had never heard of the maybe token engineering before even, so I guess it needs to be a bit less inward facing, which is the theme that we're going for. Max, were you in the community call?
I was not. I couldn't make it. Fortunately, the community call normal time sits over a recurring meeting I have, so I pretty much can never make the community call. But hearing kind of the feedback, I think it's valuable to have it. It's interesting because I'm hearing conversational is good, more conversational, at which point I would say having it at a higher frequency, or at least biweekly, just gives a cadence, right? If people, I think we talked about this when we talked about canceling some of the other community calls. If community calls go away, it gives the impression that it's kind of dead. So if it is just going to be more conversational, that requires less preparation potentially, and having it more frequently and have it just be like a Q&A and conversational piece, I think potentially could be valuable just to keep the frequency up. But I agree, if we're going to be planning speakers and things like that, biweekly probably makes sense. Just from a preparation standpoint, it's kind of whatever we can support, right? So yeah, more general thoughts. Unfortunately the time doesn't work for me normally, but I'll get on another. I've been on like 2 in the past 10 months or something, right? When a call cancels, I try. Who has not? 8. I don't. Oh, Wonka.
Yeah. Well, just speaking in the name of nostalgia, like the weekly community calls at the time of the cultural build, the hatch, they were like with so much energy, and you were like looking for the week and working during the week looking for that call, and it was like you knew that everyone was working in so many different things, but there you could like see what everyone was working on. So it was a very beautiful moment, that of the cultural build, and maybe we are correcting some of the mistakes or like things that were hard to continue doing. But in that moment, that effort that we did to gather weekly and in such a consistent effort, it was amazing, because we are reaching number 100, and it's like a long way that we've come to this point. So yeah, just honoring that practice that we had of like a weekly community call.
I'll throw some general thoughts into this pot as well. I think from the idea of being more external focused, Twitter Space is probably the right form. I think the goal doesn't necessarily need to be having more Discord joiners, but just having more awareness of TEC, even if it's just more awareness on TEC of Twitter and more awareness of token engineering. I think that could be achieved through having people exposed to Token Engineering Commons community call. And if we're doing a more external focus, I think it was interesting what you said, Rex, about how it's sort of like the attendance tapered off as we started doing the community call update of the community call. I know we've discussed having, more about token engineering projects and more conversations about token engineering than updates in the TEC. And maybe we even want, rather than having the end be where we go around in 2 or 3 groups, maybe we just, if there is anything really important to announce, we could just make a few announcements at the end, rather than, maybe. So I guess what I'm saying is we could continue to adapt to find the right fit. And then for the cadence, I tend to be aligned with what Maxwell is saying, that it's nice to have a regular cadence, because then you're showing a pulse. There's still life, and but I don't think it should be to the exclusion of spontaneity either. I think, and to you're right too, if there's something that we want to spontaneously put together, we should be able to. But there's something nice about, the twice a month feels like it's not too much of a burden to find subjects that will be interesting enough. And if it is, maybe we change it to monthly. Those are just some more things to stir in.
Right. I just wanted to say one more thing as well. If this is outward facing, the name community call isn't descriptive enough. As in, it can be part of the title, but we should probably have a theme that's in the name, so that people actually join knowing something.
Also, just some comments. I'm trying to build on what everything has said. I think the cadence, like Tam said, I think it can be either recurring or spontaneous. I think that's good. But also something that I think could help with this process, and I'm trying to follow up a little bit on the kind of like on the project management process that I proposed last week. I think also really helpful would be to kind of like assign someone as the owner, or like some type of role for someone to take on, really taking care on preparing and organizing community calls every 2 weeks, and finding the guests, and looking for interesting topics, and doing all this event planning basically for the community call. But really having someone taking on that task, I think that could help a lot.
Okay. My take on what I'm hearing is there's a kind of a divergence here. One is community call. That's been a great tradition that we've had, and especially right now we're coming up on the 100th. So it would be nice to celebrate that 100th community call. And then on the other hand, so we had all this energy in the past around that, but the reality is also that in the last several months, that's all kind of tapered off, and the calls were not that. So the question is it important for us to try to bring back that type of energy for the community call, and then what would that look like if we were to do that? And then on the other side is this thing that maybe is not a community call, Rex, to your point, and also to your point of like when we started talking about our internal operations again, then the interest kind of flagged in that Twitter space. And so maybe we separate these and start thinking about these Twitter spaces as something else, but a way to build interest in the TEC by talking about stuff that people really care about. One thing I'll just throw out there, one idea that NT had raised last week, I think, is this idea of, that maybe sometime next year, the TEC, maybe working with the Academy, pulls together a virtual conference. And so if we were to do something like that, these Twitter spaces might be a great way for us to practice that. Practice organizing people online, start to build some more awareness for the TEC again, and yeah, just give us some practice doing these kinds of online gathering spaces. So yeah, these are two. I think these feel like two different things.
Yeah, on that line, I think what I'm also thinking is what we have to do is define what is the community goal or what do we want. Because, for example, I always mention the other projects because I think they're doing an excellent job with that front. So, for instance, the Talk Engineering Labs is having like more than 3 lectures a week on Zoom, and they have like decent attendance, probably around somewhere between 20, 30, or even more people. And I also know the Academy has like very constant activities. Like today they had office hours, they have like one for exercises, they have the introduction to Talk Engineering as well, which, by the way, maybe we should take a more active part in that introduction. I don't know if that's possible, but we are on the flyer every month. And so I guess what I'm saying is what is that we want on the community calls? And the reason I don't want to have I don't want to log into a frequency or a format is just because of that. Like, what is the ultimate goal of the community goal? Just because we want to have some community presence. I think that's again very telling of how we are looking for ourselves more than we are looking for others. And so the question is, what's the opportunity or the needs of the people that we can meet with a community call like activity? Because if it's for us for the sake of just having people, I think we kind of already seen that's not very helpful, because people just see ourselves talking about ourselves. And so I guess that's kind of the thing. What's the value proposition of the TEC community call?
Hey, so I just want to highlight one thing that Tam said in the chat, which is so maybe what we do is, we're basically getting we'll be next week, we'll be halfway through December, and so that'll probably be the last call of the year. And maybe what we do is we do the 100th community call special, like it's like a reflection on the year and all that's happened in the TEC. But also I was thinking, there's something that Livia was talking about a few weeks ago, which was really recognizing all of the stewards and all the people who've contributed so much to the TEC. We never really did that. And to wrap up, like kind of the transition away from the older structure. And so maybe what we do is we do, we do a little bit of planning for this and try to get the old gang, try to get everybody back for a call to celebrate. And this is not about kind of like talking about interesting, stuff that's going on in the broader field, but this is really just a celebration. What do people think about that?
I think it's a pretty good idea.
I think it is a nice idea. I just have a small conflict because I had planned to do the creation related call for the next one. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, seems nice.
Okay, I'm gonna move this into the let's move it into the stewards channel, and it would be great if people are psyched about this. I'm seeing like 5 fires on Tam's suggestion here. So if people are into this, then it would be great to get some volunteers to help out, and specifically like Honka and Tam, Griff, people who've been around for a while. If we want to try to bring people back to celebrate, we're going to need some help doing some outreach around that. So I'll put something in the steward channel and I'll ping people, and then we can offload this from this call. Does that sound okay? How about when I say that, I'm not expecting, yeah, just people give thumbs up or some other indication. That would be okay. Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's move on. Coordination. Was that somebody trying to talk? No. Okay. So between now and February, what are we trying to do? I just thought it would be worth kind of like laying this out at the high level. Like if you go back to the proposal for the coordination team, really there were two things that we highlighted in there, but I'm adding a third based on some of the energy that's rising up right now. So first one is basically around operations. So it's like just keeping the lights on, making sure that things don't fall apart. Like as folks like Zepti have left, like how do we make sure that all the stuff that he was doing, the stuff that Eduardo was doing, the stuff that Chewy was doing, like how do we make sure that all that stuff just continues to operate? And then in the same time, like how do we launch the curation service and make sure that that gets off to a good start? And then these interest group pilots, how do we make, so that's like the first bucket. Second bucket is that in the proposal itself, for the coordination team, there was like some specific things that were raised by the community as needing more clarification. So these were like accountability systems, like how do we make sure that this team is accountable to itself, to the members of the team, that we're holding each other accountable, but then also how do we make sure that it's accountable to the community and to the token holders. And then second one is project management processes. What does this look like? How do we make decisions, particularly for the coordination team, and how does it like sync with the rest of the community? So it's not all just the coordination team trying to do everything. Third one, a lot of questions about praise and how that integrates with wage-based contributions. Like how do we get this right? And this is also up on the forum. Mitch has been asking this question, as has Rex and Max. So getting that right. And then future of stewardship in the TEC. Like this is kind of the follow-up to the work that Tam and Nate were doing back in August. And then the third bucket is future planning, and this was not in the proposal, but like we're going to have to do this anyways as part of the proposal, the conviction voting proposal that we're going to have to put together to fund this team once we run out of the existing funds. So, basically there's some energy building right now around trying to pull together a roadmap for at least the first half of 2023. And so we're gonna have to jump on that too to kind of lay out some of the ideas. So those are the three buckets are focused on in December, January, and the first half of February. So I'll leave that there for a second, just open it up for comments, thoughts, people.
Well, is this like supposed to be somewhat comprehensive, or just like a set of initial guidelines?
Think of it as buckets. These are not the details within each of the bucket, but it's kind of like helping us to frame what where we're focused.
Right, because okay. I'm not sure if it's like what's the word? Like I feel like it's missing some meat. I don't know. Like even in the buckets are missing some meat. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, that's kind of intentional. I mean, we have 15 minutes, so we're not going to go into all the details of all the stuff we're doing, but it's more conceptual. Maybe that's not that useful, but I think it's helpful to kind of help us all frame like what we're working on for the next couple months.
I guess I would ask like / confirm, this is the coordination focus, right? This is the internally facing topics. So we've all said multiple times that we need to be more externally focused, but I guess I'm asking for confirmation that these are the goals that are internally facing. That's not, certainly not comprehensive for the externally facing things that we'd like to do, because, one, we don't know, this is more internally facing, I guess is my question.
Well, be interesting to hear other people's thoughts, but I think this is a combination. This is the project management stuff is more like, how do we, it's not just like the internal projects, it's like, how do we be able to be open to ideas from anybody in the community and then transform that into actual projects that get done. Whether it's like allowing other people who come up with the idea to just run with it, what does that look like in this new model? Or it's like somebody comes up with an idea, it's like, okay, yeah, let's, like with the interest groups is an idea of being externally focused, but having some support from the coordination team. So like YGG, like, hey, let's bring back the token engineering labs, the TEC labs. So Bear and I have been like working with him behind the scenes to try to like just make that super easy for him. But that's an example of something that I think is more externally focused. It's like allowing people to come in and get engaged again, but with some support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and that's fair. I think the curation service ideally would be externally focused, right? And then some of the roadmap stuff would be externally focused. So that makes sense. It just seemed like a lot of the detail was around what we could control internally, because that's kind of what we're talking about here. But I think I like how you explained it.
I also think that when we start to do these pilots for the interest groups and the curation service stuff, I do think that a lot of these internal facing operations goals will kind of become clear in terms of who's responsible for what. Creating an accountability system and the management process will be all incorporated into this normal flow of things. But I do think we have to get those externally facing initiatives off the ground. I know that Rex was interested in doing kind of a data investigation or data analysis interest group, and YGG with labs. I have my own interest group that I'm interested in doing, and I think as long as we get these off the ground, I think the internal processes will start to become a lot more clear and a lot easier to establish. So I like it.
Also, to add on to that, and just as I guess like a general update, part of the work that I've been doing and a lot of it with Gideon is on this side of the project management processes, on the accountability systems, and in the future planning for the TEC. So I'm hoping to have something more solid that I can present as some proposal or some options to the group in the coming days, or maybe next week. And I'm hoping that can serve us as a way to incorporate all of these into a more like clear and organized framework that we can all understand and follow. So yeah, just letting everyone know that.
Go ahead, Rick.
No, I was going to resurface like kind of the interest group discussion that we had beforehand. And like, but I guess because I think that partnerships and interest groups are very kind of different in the way that we can approach them. We don't have the same sort of leverage. They're a bit more they're forced to be a bit more formal, et cetera, et cetera. And like, yeah, I wanted to bring that up.
I just wanted to say that I think the focus could be. I know that that's very generalized, but I wish the focus was more outward facing. Just echoing a bit what Nate said, I think a lot of those processes and some of those things that we have to think of will become more obvious and it will be easier to do them once we have some more things live. In a similar way to what I said about community calls, I worry that us thinking too much about processes and then doing the work is not going to be the best way, because anyways we are with the interest groups and everything else, all things are going to change a lot. And so maybe we of course have to think about some stuff, but sort of trying to optimize for results than for processes, I guess.
Yeah, so if I were to try to summarize what I'm hearing here, big focus on like, hey, let's not get too focused inwardly, right? Like, let's not let process drive everything, right? Let's make sure that, and I guess my response would be, I think we have 2 new initiatives that are going to be pretty outward facing, and possibly a third. So one is the curation service. The second is the interest groups. And the third might be these new kinds of like Twitter spaces, kind of like outward facing, I don't know what we call it, but like online gatherings, right? And, we're like mini conferences, let's say. And so if we use those outward facing services as a way to test out our internal processes and make the internal processes work well, that's probably a good idea. Like, think in terms of MVP. Like, don't overinvest in process up front. Do the minimum that we need in order to do those things well. But don't try to over anticipate everything. But I will also say that, like, if you try to do these things without some process, we're going to end up in some trouble because we won't be able to roll them out or scale them. So I think it's finding the right balance. That's my take on it.
I do. I agree with you with the balance of process and like actualizing something. But we're really talking about prototyping, right? So I'm not sure to what extent you need to like create a process for a prototype, right? If we're gonna start prototyping and just do things, try it out, and if shit hits the fan, then we look at it and say, right, this needs better process or having better analysis and introspection from kind of trying to do it and failing quickly. I'm not sure whether that's like a better approach than trying to scope out the process for something that we don't know the scope of.
So take a look at the thing that we're doing with YGG. I think it's a good example. Bear basically pulled together a bare minimum like write-up, super simple. YGG was like really happy about how simple it was and how little work it's going to require of him to be able to actually get to work and restarting the labs. But like not having anything and saying like, YGG, what would you want, would have been a pain in the ass for him because it would have pushed the work onto him. So I think we need some level of something, right, to be able to get things moving, and then, but not be locked in, right? So like You have to start with an idea. You have to start with some seed and some seed processes, and then just be open to having those change with conditions.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but we just have 5 minutes left. I think this is something we can chat through on the sample call or next week. But I'm truly interested to chat about the academy proposal now that we are all here.
Oh, good call. I was losing track of time. Can I just jump into that?
Absolutely.
So the Academy made a big proposal. I think it should go on the conviction voting pretty soon if there wasn't any major feedback. So make sure to give some feedback on the advice process in the forum before it goes up, if you have anything that you think needs to be changed. But the concept here is that it has to be a donation. Otherwise, Angela would have to pay 20% VAT taxes on it. But the idea here is to make this a major first step towards actually integrating TEC and TE Academy towards even a merger. But we don't want to put quid pro quo into this. And of course, there is no real guarantee that they will do this. But the expectation, there is a good likelihood that if these things pass, then TEC could be integrated into the TE Academy in very important ways, and we would start having weekly brainstorming sessions of exactly how we would integrate the TEC token into the Academy's offering, maybe making it that you have to have the first class in the Academy is to use the bonding curve to buy $1 worth of TEC, and then that unlocks the rest of the class, for instance. Or to buy a certification, the classes are free, but to buy a certification, you have to pay 100 TEC tokens or something like that, right? We're going to look for ways that we can integrate the TEC token into the Academy so that Academy students have to use TEC, maybe locking study sessions down, these sorts of things. So it's very exciting. It's a big thing, and we only have a few minutes. I don't know if there's any specific questions or concerns about this direction. They're also asking for a lot of money, so.
Hey, Griff, I have an idea. I wonder if we could use either this Thursday call or next Tuesday's call to just dive into this a little bit more and, be able to give people a chance to hear. So, because you've been thinking about this. I mean, this is just what you summarized there is just a very short summary of what some of the opportunities here. Maybe, I don't know if Angela would be available to come in too, but it might be good to just have a little bit more dedicated time for this. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can definitely. So then maybe let's just focus on hey, there's a proposal up. Does anyone hate it? Is there any concerns that we could do to improve it before it goes up to conviction voting? Did everyone see it? I assume not. Because I can post the forum post.
Yes. Can you send a link, please?
Yeah. There it is.
I saw it, and my view is generally positive. I did. First time I looked at it, I sort of thought that they were asking too much for what they were going to give back. But on the backdrop that this is an initial step, it makes a lot of sense in the way this is set up. Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
I liked it.
I would just say, I'm sorry, very quickly, that I think I would I'm 1,000% supporter of the proposal regardless, but I would love to see more commitment on some stuff because we've had a few minor issues for the past months with some projects that some misalignments, I guess we can say, And so that's a very big chunk of money. And there's the potential of a better relationship, but at the same time, it could be very well that the proposal passes and the relationship doesn't improve at all. I guess that's my main concern.
And if I could jump in the last minute for fear of beating a dead horse, because I've said this over and over again, I don't think that there's any project that really embodies the TEC's mission of advancing token engineering like TE Academy. And they have a very strong, very proven track record of delivering and honoring their commitments. So I would be less worried. And I'm with you about being worried about some projects, but I wouldn't feel that hesitation with TE Academy. And I also think that they are actualizing our mission and deserve our full, unequivocal support.
Yes, I do agree with that, but I think that the point to mention is more on like Sampo and the ventures which kind of went on in Sampo for a month, and then we asked for TA cooperation, and then they stalled, or they said that they were going to do something similar, so we pushed back, and the same sort of behavior hasn't been reciprocated thus far. I think that's because they set out their own curation service already. So like I believe that's where the cogs are turning, and the point of.
If I can just offer some observations on this right now. I mean, I think that one, this is actually the biggest opportunity that the TEC has had since we launched, and probably will be the biggest opportunity we will have for quite some time, to help build this field and integrate it. And yeah, there have been some misunderstandings and things. I mean, I have contributed to those myself. But I think that there's been just some misunderstanding and stuff like that has happened. But I think fundamentally what explains most of it is that Angela and the rest of the crew there have just been heads down, really focused on trying to get this fundamentals course launched, right? And now it's launched. And so Angela is freed up to be able to think about this relationship. And, like pretty much right after it launched, she's turned back to it and said, okay, let's talk about this. So I think, we can't get too focused on stuff that, we don't understand from the past. Like, I think we just owe it to the field to set that stuff aside and not think about that too much and really focus on the opportunity that's in front of us. Because I think it's huge. I really do think it's huge. And I think if we just assume best intentions and really focus on how to build synergy, I think that's really the right way to go. Otherwise, we get stuck, and I just don't think that's a healthy thing, right? That's my take.
Cool. I'm sorry, I'm at time. I have to run. I'm glad that there's no serious. I mean, put any concerns in the forum post, but if there's no one blocking, I'll make the conviction voting proposal tomorrow. Once it's reached the 5-day advice process. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that given this transformation is nearing complete, we might want to consider doing a little param party on configuring conviction voting, making some proposals to configure, make a new conviction voting configuration, and see what it looks like. But I have to run. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay, so I mean, it sounds like there's some, there are some concerns that I'm hearing about, like just level of commitment from the academy. But I mean, are those blockers?
I think it really depends on what they're committing to. I really do think that, I'm a firm believer in supporting the TE Academy. I think that integrating into the TEA is one of the best things that we can do in terms of the TEC token. But there's got to be some form of type of commitment towards that. because who is the TE Academy in terms of the organization? Is it just Angela? What is their organizational structure? How are they going to manage the like anything that when it comes to integrating the TEC token? I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered and talked through, which I'm down for. But I do think that setting up clear boundaries of responsibilities of what is managed and by whom is really important.
I do think for this one, ultimately, it's the whales that have been kind of not voting for a very long time that are going to be the ones that decide, rather than me with 600 DC. So yeah, I personally, I'd say they should just go forward with it. But if they do end up kind of all sort of not committing afterwards and fulfilling even like the week commitment that they set out in the proposal, then it will just severely sever and sour the relationships with the TEC in future.
I think it's really important to clarify that this proposal is not contingent on any future relationship. This is to support the Token Engineering Academy, and that it's not a promise proposal. Right? It's like the I know that it would be great for the TEC and the TEA to have this collaboration moving forward, but this isn't like if we do this, then they do that. It's more like we want to support the TE Academy because they are educating the next generation of token engineers. And I think if we support it with that ethos in mind and with that spirit in mind, then it becomes, for me at least, a no-brainer that we're supporting token engineering, our mission, by supporting the TE Academy, who's educating for free thousands of token engineers.
I fully support that idea, but the question remains on if the TA is doing X, if we decide to go forward and do a venture that's say X, Y, and Z, and then the T, and we kind of get stuck in our own process and the TA kind of push it X, Y, and Z 2 weeks, and we're kind of 2 months in the middle, then, and that happens a number of times, then it can become quite frustrating, and it's just to measure that frustration. I understand. I urge you all to vote in favor because the TA is amazing, but it's just a long-standing issue that we've had in trying to cooperate with them.
Okay, we are well over the hour, so I want to respect people's time. Sorry that we've gone over. This was a big issue that came up at the very end. We will be talking about this, no doubt, for some time to come. And as Tam says, this one we just got to consider as like, hey, we haven't been funding much in terms of public goods recently. Like, if you really look at what's gone through conviction voting, there really hasn't been much in terms of like public goods. So this is our chance to do it, and I can't imagine a better one. But the longer term relationship is something we'll be talking about, and this will probably end up becoming something that is like, if we go forward with a closer relationship, this will become like a big part of what we're doing in next year.
Can somebody clarify the donation comment?
Yeah, and the funding goes to TE Academy, which is incorporated in Germany. And if this is a revenue for that company, then there's 20% VAT on it. And as a donation, there's no VAT. So this would be a donation to TE Academy, which means it's not there's no expectation of services.
Does that mean it's not distributed through conviction voting, but rather as a direct?
No, it still goes through
transaction?
conviction voting. No, the community still approves the funding outlay.
Okay.
But in more importantly, it's important that there's not like, these are the services that will be performed for this. Like it's not a contract between this legal organization and the TEC.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll follow up on this for sure. We'll figure out a way to have some follow-up conversations. Thank you everybody for staying late, and thanks for the great comments today. We'll
Thanks,
see you.
Gideon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you later.